Welcome to the Dive Heart First podcast, where we clear out what has been troubling in the mind so that we can dive into the intelligence of the heart. I'm your host, Jenn Walker, and today we are going to talk about tapping into and tuning into your body's intelligence and intuition. So recently I did a whole course on intuition with the Lori Wilson. Lori has been doing this for decades, and she's been doing these workshops all over the world for that time. And it was fantastic. It was a whole group of us for a weekend. And one of the things that I loved the most about it was putting language to these things so that we could all understand it. And maybe we had had that access before, but didn't know how to tangibly understand it or explain it to even ourselves. And it got a bunch of people in the room discussing intuition. And I love that. I love that. And we were also able to play and practice and hone our skills together. I think there's real power in that. I think there's real power of coming back to our intuitive intelligence. And I think information sharing and having conversations will speed this up for us all to come back into access of different channels and understand it and play with it and notice it and become aware of it all again. So that is my intention with this podcast. I will share my experience of my own intuition, and I'll keep on doing this in different episodes of different ways that I experience my intuition. And it's not right, and it's definitely not the only way. Everyone is wildly intuitive. You are wildly intuitive, and you listen and you experience your intuition in so many different ways. So the more I talk about mind, maybe it will discern more pathways that you have in yours. So that is my intention for today. And I thought I would talk about the body's intuition and intelligence, because I just love the body so much and its guidance and wisdom. And one of the things that I thought I'd kind of like tease out, something that I play every single day, is the hot cold game. And it's something that I think I've mentioned a few times in other podcasts, but I haven't explained what I meant by that. So I'll tell you what I mean by the hot cold game. But really, it came about by learning years and years ago about applied kinesiology and muscle testing. So I remember my mind being blown when I saw muscle testing for the first time. And I believe it was a naturopath just assessing which vitamin brands would work best with their patient. And so essentially all it is you can put your arm out straight and you just resist pressure. So test down, that will become the baseline. And then the patient can hold, like, say, vitamins or even a food or something in their other hand. And then you test again. If it's strong and it's the same as baseline, the food or vitamin works. But if the muscle testing goes weak, you know that that certain element is not congruent to that person's system. And you can even play with this beyond food and vitamins. You can play with this with thoughts and knowings and ask yes and no questions. So if you have somebody around right now, you could do that right now. You just put out your arm, resist pressure and get a baseline of strength. It doesn't have to be crazy hard. Then you ask things that you know are definitely a yes, and you ask things that you know are definitely a no. So for example, for me, I could be like, okay, my name is Jenn, and I could test down. Okay, I'm strong there. I am a goat. Okay, that's a lie. I'm not a goat. And you'll notice that I'll become weaker after that. And the really cool thing about that is this knowing in our body, because our unconscious and subconscious mind is actually in our body. And so our conscious mind, our prefrontal cortex, knows what it knows, whereas our unconscious mind and subconscious mind knows what we don't know. Okay. And so there's so much potential happening in our body in the way that it communicates. And when I think of the unconscious and subconscious mind, it's all the things. Like it is your complete life history. And I think a little bit beyond that, connected to the oneness field. And then it's like correlating data and it's pattern recognizing things. So when we ask the body questions and we're like, how do we know that? It's just, you know that. And you don't even need to know how you know it. You just know that you know it. So that's one way to do it if you have somebody that you can practice with. Another way to do it is just with your own hands, and you put your pointer finger and your thumb together and make an O, and then just link them up. So you put your pointer finger and thumb in between that little hole, and you have this link that you form. Then you can ask the same question. So just muscle test and see that it's strong and it's all linked together. And say, okay, my name is Jenn. Yeah, nice and strong. I am a frog. And it will break through. So you'll have that momentary like boop weakness. That's not the truth. And you can play with it more and more and more. There's another way in which you can do it, which is like big C, little c. All you do is again thumb and pointer finger, and you put the nail beds of your thumb and pointer finger just underneath your other two fingers. And you can just ask your body, show me a yes. And you just wait. Usually for people, the two fingers will expand and become wider. And then you say, okay, show me a no. Usually it will contract, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way for everything. So then you can use this as well as like just asking questions. You can do it under the table, like, should I trust this person? And just notice the fingers. Oh, it's expanding. Yes, I can trust that person, or whatever you're interested to discern. And this finger, the big C, little c, is a lot like a pendulum. So a pendulum, I call her this little guy, if you're watching on video, Rosie, because it's a rose quartz on the end, but it can be anything, a string and a weight, like a washer at the end. And with a pendulum, you're just interested to ask, okay, show me a yes, which Rosie was already showing me, and then show me a no. And Rosie's going back and forth. Yeah, and then Rosie starts going counterclockwise. So typically with the pendulum, but you still check in with what your no and yes is. Typically with a pendulum, clockwise and up down for people is a yes, and counterclockwise back forth is a no. But you want to check in. Then with like Rosie, you can ask. You can ask any questions you want. Should I move? Should I, yeah, anything you want, and see the results. And the cool thing about having a pendulum is you don't even need to have it, because you can also become a human pendulum. And what that looks like is you just stand and you relax your body in a nice neutral way. And then you just ask your body, show me a yes. Typically, for a lot of people, it's leaning forward. And sometimes people notice like, oh, show me a yes, and it's like almost like a lift in the spine, like a taller and a lean. And then show me no, typically it's a lean back and a little bit of a shrink. So I like playing with that, and that's where the hot cold game has come from. So in my body, what a yes feels like is this expansion. It feels like a lean forward, and it feels like a pull versus a push. Another way I like to describe this feeling is aliveness. And it's like this little subtle energy, but I can feel it because intuition is truly, I believe, like a language. The more we practice and the more we communicate, the more we comprehend with these things. So I literally play the hot cold game every single day. So it's just this tiny little boop expansion. I can almost like feel every single cell, and I become a little taller, a little stronger. I lean forward, and it feels like flow. It feels like I'm being pulled along versus a push. It feels alive versus contracted. So, what the hot cold game is, if you ever played the hot cold game when you're a kid and you would hide an item and your friend wouldn't see where it was hidden, and then they would go walk around and try to find the item. And if they were walking towards the item, you're like, warmer, 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 hot, hot, burning hot, burning hot. And then if they were to move away, you're like, oh, cooler, cooler, cold, frigid, cold, frozen, So for me, just playing this with those low stake activities. And what that looks like for me, if I'm driving home and say I always go a particular way, but there's something in me that feels like there's this aliveness or pull to go in a different way. I try that. And I've had the most magical experiences with it. I mean, it can be in the physical decisions that you make every single day, or it can be in a thought. You could have a thought, and I could just feel that aliveness of like, oh, reach out to that person today. And it's like, yes, a pull, and you do it. And it's like, oh, I'm so glad you reached out because, but, here's this opportunity. And you're like, of course. So I think it's really fun to play with. And it's one that we have the best way to learn any language is immersion. And it's one of these things that you can play with everything, the tiniest little thing or the biggest question, like, should I move? Should I end this relationship? Like, the more you hone this skill, the more the answers just flow and flood in. And one of the things that I love playing with is food. So, and grocery shopping. And, sometimes you got to pick up all the groceries for the whole family. I don't. So I have this luxury to really go with my body and intuitively shop. And I love it. And you'll naturally just go around and feel like food just pulling you in, or this expansion in your body. And I'm always very curious of like coming home with different foods that I haven't cooked with before, and then looking up like the vitamin and nutrient content. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting because I'm probably in, my luteal phase, and that's really good. So I don't go in the grocery store with my head thinking I should get this, 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 and this. I go in with my heart. I go in with my body, and I let my body lead me around to different nutrients, different vitamins through food that it wants in the moment. And I just trust it. So anyway, that's one way that I explore and experience my intuition. I love it. I think it's fascinating, especially when I'm really leaning into pathways like turning left versus turning right. I always have these interesting synchronistic meetings, opportunities that roll in. I also like doing it with my schedule. So the mind can make a list. The mind loves a list. And then every day, I'm looking at the list and I'm looking for the thing that's most aligned. For sure, there's like obligations and there's deadlines and things you have to get done, I guess. But what I find is when I check in with the list and I look into aliveness, when I do that thing, all of a sudden more momentum happens with the rest. So anyway, don't take my word for it. Play with it. Play with that hot, cold game of following aliveness, and following your aliveness, however you experience that subtlety in your body, and with no expectations and with no attachment to outcome. So follow that aliveness, take it as far as it will go, and then notice if it shifts. So sometimes aliveness happens and this right, wrong, to send you in a direction, but it's not a path or direction you're going to stay on. It's a path or direction so that you get a new data point. And so then you move there. So I always say go in that path, but without non-attachment. And what I like about the hot cold game is it's very agile. It's moment by moment. It's present. It's very present. It's an exploration. It's a curiosity. It's you becoming like a mad scientist of the energetics of your world. And I think that's a lot of fun. So anyway, that is one way that I explore my intuition through my body. And yeah, I just have this real respect for my body. I think she's badass. No, she just is so intelligent, and she's just so wise, and she's just so generous with her intel and her sharing and her offering. So I've noticed the more I listen to her, and I call my body a female, the more she offers. And that's it for me. And I really like to hear from you. That is one way through the body that we can listen to our wisdom and intelligence and our intuition. And I'd love to hear from you. So allow these videos on intuition and everything to be information sharing. I love what's happening over at YouTube. A lot of really thoughtful reflections and questions. So share wherever you're listening to this. If you want to come over to YouTube and add it to that community, love to hear from you. So that's it. Until next time, thank you so much for spending part of your day here with me. I love you and your intuition, and go out and have an absolutely tremendous day.